So this kind of thing has popped up twice in the past few days here, and I thought it was interesting enough to be able to explore it, so we are making back-to-back videos about this same kind of thing. This one and then the next one, they'll be pretty similar, but today we are talking about Team Slovakia at the World Championships, and how, at the time of recording this audio at least, I'm going to bed. A lot of these games are on really early in the morning because the tournament is in Europe, but at the time of recording this audio, Montreal Canadiens' first overall pick, Juraj Slafkovsky, is doing pretty well. We had spoken about in the prior video about how he is bullying the tournament, and that entire sentiment is not something that I want to change. He has been an absolute force of nature. But in this video, we're going to be talking a bit more about just some of the numbers, some of the goals, and also go over some comments that were made about Slafkovsky from another Canadiens legend that I think every Canadiens fan at some point heard his name in their dreams. Because we are going over to Team Slovakia and talking about Slafkovsky. He's got 4 assists in the 4 games played so far in the tournament. He capped off his recent game against Poland with an assist. He also had himself 0 points in a 5-4 overtime win over Team USA, which was very funny because guess who was on Team USA? Yes, it is his very own line mate in Cole Caulfield. Admittedly, the Americans have not really been doing all too well this tournament so far. It's been a very... do I want to say it's an anomaly? Yeah, it kind of is an anomaly, especially considering how strong of a roster the Americans iced on paper. The fact that they're like 1-1-1 or whatever it is, that's not great. And there was another interview from Cole Caulfield, I'm pretty sure, where he did look pretty frustrated to have lost a game in OT to his buddy Slaf. But in this video, what we're doing is we're going over onto a tweet made by Tomas Prokop, who is a Slovak hockey insider, going out there and tweeting stuff about, of course, the Slovak hockey team. He tweeted this out. It's a quote from former Montreal Canadiens phenom Tomas Tatar. And yeah, I did say it. You probably heard his name once or twice in your nightmares because that soundbite was all over the internet. Anyways, if you translate Prokop's tweet from Slovak into English, it goes out there and says this: Tomas Tatar speaking about Juraj Slafkovsky, he's fine. The pressure on him is great. This is not an easy tournament. There are many matches in a row. The expectations are huge. Juraj is doing a good job, although there are some moments sometimes when it doesn't work out. Like, for example, I hit the post twice in the first 3 games. Here you can bet that he'll score 3 goals in 2 games. He's still doing a good job. He's very strong in the puck. There is huge potential. We need every single formation. And this is a very meager kind of video topic. It's not really that deep, it's not big, but it is nice to see because Tomas Tatar, if you hadn't been paying attention, he's actually the captain of the Slovak team this year. So yeah, you talk about the guys up top, eh? You talk about the Brady Tkachuks, you talk about the John Tavarises, the Roman Josis. Tomas Tatar is right in there as one of the C's. And of course, the fact that he is a former Canadian makes things interesting because I think most people would remember Tatar in a good way, right? Like, you think about the trade that sent him over to Montreal in the first place, Tomas Tatar, Max Pacioretty, Nick Suzuki, very influential move for the Canadiens in that time frame. You think about what Tatar did as a member of that line with Danail and Gallagher, one of the best shutdown lines the Canadiens have had in years. They helped that team reach the final. And Tatar was a big part of it, not because he produced points. In fact, the entire line did not produce many points in that playoff run. But as we've talked about over the years, that line was so defensively sound that they had a different level of effectiveness that was not on the score sheet. But either way, all Tomas Tatar talk aside, the fact is here, Juraj Slafkovsky is supposed to be, at least when you think about the roster on paper, the best player for Team Slovakia. And we did go out there and see some Canadiens fans responding to the discourse about this squad. How, sure, while Slafkovsky might not have the most points per se, you've got Libor Hudacek, who's got the #1 point production on the team. You have Martin Pospisil, Simon Nemec, all there too. Tatar, Koch, Slafkovsky all have 4 points each. While Slafkovsky isn't the absolute bona fide leading the way #1 point getter, when you watch the games, you can see that there is a good quality of his offensive possession play driving ability that isn't really present in some of these other guys. Like, I'm sorry, Martin Pospisil doesn't really play a significantly play-driving heavy type of style. He's a lot more to the net, straightforward, trying to get a shot through, and his work ethic really shines. Tomas Tatar, kind of the same thing. I mean, we know he can play defensively very well. It's why he was a part of that Danault and Gallagher line. But you also talk about his goal scoring. That stood out in a pretty big way. Of course, we recognize that Tatar was a lot more effective in Montreal than he was in Vegas, let's just say. In fact, I'm getting super curious now as to what Tatar was up to in the most recent NHL season. He was traded to Seattle, was he not? Yeah, he was. So, New Jersey, Colorado, then traded to Seattle. Yeah, no, that New Jersey year last year, really good. 48 points, 82 games played. They couldn't keep him, though. And in Colorado, he only had 9 points, 27 games himself. 15 points with Seattle, though. So he did improve a slight amount in terms of his overall point production, but his Montreal days were fantastic. 61 points in 68 games played. Yeah, you really can't go out there and discredit what Tomas Tatar did. And of course, he didn't play the entirety of that Stanley Cup run. It was unfortunate, but still, he was there. Anyways, yeah, what were we talking about? That was a big tangent. Yeah, no, we were talking about the Slovak team and other guys on the team making an impact and how Juraj Slafkovsky is one of the main play drivers, especially offensively, on this team. He has been doing a good job at just creating space. You know, this is kind of what we expected out of Juraj Slafkovsky. He spent all this time growing and developing in the European ice, where he sort of made his bread and butter, and he was really good internationally at the Olympics and all this stuff, but then going over to North America with smaller ice, he kept his head down too much, he was getting hit far too often, and it took him a while, but he eventually calibrated his hockey senses and his hockey mind to the smaller ice surface, and he was able to start dominating as a result. And so now, being thrusted back into the international scene, he's back on bigger ice with more room to move. This guy's kind of using that to his advantage, and I think it's very evident when you watch a lot of these games. And it's kind of funny because the way Slafkovsky is playing, this is coming off the heels of what was a very full and very fulfilling 82-game campaign already with the Montreal Canadiens. Last year, he only had 39 games played. So the fact that Slafkovsky has never really played a season that has been this long, it's kind of astounding to say that, okay, 86 games in, maybe even 90-plus games in, because you don't include the preseason in those numbers, he's still kicking, he's still going, and what? Give it a few more days of the tournament, he'll eventually max out at like 100-plus games in the span of, let's say, September to May? What is that, 8 months worth of hockey? Like, that's a lot of hockey. And it's nothing like Juraj Slafkovsky has ever seen before. So the fact that he's still doing well and still finding ways to succeed and create plays, drive to the middle, get passes through, get guys shots, and just build his offensive repertoire with competition that you could say is not as good as the NHL. Like, I'm sorry, a lot of his teammates are not as good as Suzuki and Caulfield. He's still doing well, though. That's a pretty good thing, I would say. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below about Juraj Slafkovsky and the comments made by Tomas Tatar on him. Do you think this has been a good tournament so far? If you've been watching the games, what are your thoughts on the way Slav and Tatar have been playing? What are your opinions on Tatar's season as well? Because the guy had himself a very weird one. Up and down, Colorado, Seattle, eventually now the captain of the national team, and very avid Juraj Slafkovsky supporter. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.